Maya had a habit of playing sleep sounds before bed: rain, ocean waves, white noise, whatever tricked her mind into forgetting how long the dark could stretch. Her phone stayed on the nightstand, screen down, microphone on. It wasn't anything strange. Her therapist had suggested recording her sleep a few months ago after she'd started waking up with scratches on her arms and dreams she couldn't explain. The idea was to observe without fear, but fear was exactly what lived in the quiet between one night and the next. That Friday, she'd gone to bed around 11:42 p.m. after scrolling longer than she meant to. Her apartment, a small one-bedroom above a florist, hummed with the sound of thievery and the distant traffic of a city half asleep. She turned on her sleep app, hit record, and told herself it was just data. That's all it ever was. She dreamed vaguely of water and knocking. Nothing clear. At 7:06 a.m., sunlight made a thin path across the wall, and she woke to the sound of hair alarm. The night felt uneventful, which was a relief. She reached for her phone and saw the file saved, 7:12 recorded. She hit play, expecting nothing but her usual soft breathing and shifting sheets. The first 4 hours were exactly that. White noise, the hum of the fridge, the sound of sleep itself. Then at 4:19 a.m. a voice spoke. It wasn't hers. Low, calm, close enough to the microphone that she could hear the tiny click of a throat before the first word. "Don't turn over." Maya froze, phone still in her hand, her reflection faint in the black screen. She rewound the file, pressed play again. The same, her breathing quiet, then the voice a man's, unhurried, inches from where her head should have been. "Don't turn over." There was no second sound. No footsteps, no door. Just a stillness that lasted nearly 2 minutes before the app picked up her shifting, a sigh, and the rustle of sheets. She'd moved in her sleep after the voice said it. For a long time she didn't move, didn't breathe. Then she shut the app, threw the phone onto the bed like it had burned her, and whispered, "It's a glitch." But the voice had breath, grain, warmth. Glitches don't have warmth. The morning light didn't feel safe anymore. Maya spent the first hour convincing herself it was a prank her own brain had pulled. Maybe the sleep app had glitched and inserted a clip from one of those meditation tracks she'd played last week. Maybe a late-night radio bled through the building's wiring. She even held the phone up to the kitchen light like truth might be printed in the glass. By 8:30, the world outside sounded normal again. Delivery vans, the florist's metal gate rolling up, a neighbor's loft in the hallway. Normal as a heavy blanket. She let it cover her. She made coffee, opened her laptop, and tried to work. Every few minutes, her fingers hovered over the keys, and her eyes drifted to the edge of the screen where the app icon sat like a dare. At 9:12, she gave in. She opened the file and scrubbed straight to 4:19 a.m. The waveform showed Athen, sharp rise, a small mountain in the flat night. She pressed play. The low click of a throat, then that same calm voice, "Don't turn over." The words held steady, gentle, like a parent asking a child to be still for a photo. Goosebumps lifted along her arms. She paused, replayed, paused, replayed. Same breath, same shape, same nearness. Her hands shook just enough to make the phone feel heavy. She checked the app settings, next sources, inputs, filters. The mic was set to device microphone, sensitivity at medium. The sleep sound file she'd used was just plain white noise, stored locally, last updated months ago. No audio, no streaming, no reason. She typed the sentence into a search bar, sleep app, voice, not mine, and scrolled through threads where people heard themselves snore, talk, grind teeth. One post mentioned a boyfriend whispering in the middle of the night. Another described a cat meowing. No one had a calm stranger an inch from the mic. She tried to remember everything she'd done before bed. Locked the door, checked the windows, set the chain. She walked to the front door and touched the chain, now cool, firm, in place. She inspected the window latches down, tight. She opened the closet and found it the same as always. One winter coat, one jacket, a vacuum that needed a new filter, a shoebox of old receipts. Her apartment was a list she could recite. Lamp by the couch, plant on the sill, Muga on the counter, 2 plates drying, 3 forks, no knife that could frighten anyone. She stood in the bedroom doorway and felt the room look back. The bed, the nightstand, the faint dents in the pillow where her head had been. The phone lay face down in the center of the mattress, like it didn't want to see her. She made herself listen to more of the file. Nothing for almost 40 minutes, just her steady breath and the distant refrigerator motor. At 5:01 a.m., the app picked up a soft scrape like fabric brushing wood. Then, very close, the sound of someone exhaling through their nose. Not a snore, not hers. Male, probably. She turned the volume down even though she was alone, because the instinct to be polite is strong when the unknown sounds like a person. "It's nothing," she said out loud, because the room needed words to balance the other words. She got ready as if the day could still be simple: shower, jeans, low bun, light makeup to make her face belong to daylight. She grabbed her bag and after a long, stubborn hesitation, picked up the phone and opened a new recording. Night 42 Friday. She added a note under it. Play for someone rational. At the office, the open floor plan hummed with the noise of people who think sound is productivity. She lasted an hour before she pulled her friend Erin into a conference room with glass walls and a table too large for two. "I need you to hear something," Maya said, trying to keep her voice light and failing. Erin was the most practical person she knew. Project manager, mother of twins, lover of labels and routers that actually route. "If this is that true crime podcast again, it's my sleep recording." Erin's face changed. "Not fear attention. Okay, hit me." Maya scrubbed to 419 and pressed play. The room was too bright for the voice. It made the words worse somehow, like a shadow on clean tile. "Don't turn over." Erin didn't speak at first. She replayed it, then replayed the 5 seconds before, then the 5 after. She watched the waveform as if it were a heart monitor, and they were waiting for the skip. "Could be a neighbor," Erin said finally, which is what sane people say when they hear things that don't fit. "Thin walls? I hear their TV sometimes. This isn't through a wall. A phone notification? From who? And why would my phone whisper to me like my grandfather telling me not to spill soup?" Erin's laugh was small. Then her face sharpened. "You sleep with your phone on your nightstand? Always. Screen down?" "Yeah." Erin sat back and looked at the ceiling like it might hand her a checklist. "Okay, try an experiment. Move the phone tonight. Put it on the dresser. Or the floor. Different angle, different distance. If the voice is a bug in the mic, we'll know. If it's air vents, we'll know. If it's a person," Maya said. The glass walls made everything inside the room feel like a stage no one had bothered to close the curtains on. Erin reached across the table and squeezed her hand once. Quick managerial comfort. "If it's a person, you're staying at my place." Maya nodded, swallowed. "There's more," she said, and scrubbed forward to 501. The soft scrape, the close exhale. Erin's face didn't move, but her eyes dyed one small flinch that betrayed how human it is to imagine a body where a sound belongs. "Put the phone on the dresser," Erin said again, carefully calm, "and wedge a chair under your front door handle. Humor me." Maya nodded. They went back to their desks and let the office swallow the moment with calendar invites and keyboard sounds. At 4:46 p.m., just before Maya shut her laptop, a text from an unknown number lit her screen. "You sleep on your left side." No emoji, no punctuation, no thread above it. Her stomach fell hard. She stared at the words until they felt like ink leaking into the glass. She didn't reply. She didn't show Erin. She deleted nothing. She slid her phone into her bag like it was something alive that might wake up. That night would have rules. Phone on the dresser, screen away, chair under the handle, app rolling. Observe without fear. That was the plan. But plans are just promises you make to a time that hasn't met you yet. That night, Maya did everything like a checklist you give a frightened child so they feel brave doing adult things. She ate early. She washed the single plate. She checked the front door lock, set the chain, and then wedged a dining chair under the handle like Erin said. She even took a photo of the setup so that in the morning, if her brain tried to lie, she would have proof. The window latches clicked down, 1, 2. She set her phone to airplane mode and do not disturb, turned off Bluetooth, killed every notification she could find, and opened the sleep app. Before she hit record, she carried the phone to the dresser waist high, 2 steps from the bed, and laid its screen down on a folded t-shirt so the mic wouldn't rest directly on wood. Distance, angle, control. She left the white noise off this time. She wanted the room's real sound. She stood there for a minute listening to nothing and heard everything. The fridge motor settling, the neighbor upstairs pacing, the florist's walk-in cooler, thumping once as it cycled, the city like a sea against the glass. She pressed record. Sleep came in fits. She lay on her left side because the text had said she did, and she wanted to know if she was obeying a stranger or her own spine. She turned once around 4 a.m., woke to her own breath too loud in her head, and forced herself to face the wall again. Somewhere in the dark, she thought about how the voice had said, "Don't turn over," and the thought felt like a hand hovering above her shoulder, never touching. Always there. She fell into a shallow dream where she stood in a hallway with doors on both sides and each door had her name on it, printed faint, like a pencil mark someone meant to erase. At 6:53 a.m., her alarm vibrated the night to pieces. She sat up with the kind of headache that forms when you've clenched your jaw for hours. The chair was still shoved under the handle, the chain still set, the windows still latched. She reached for the dresser with a hand that didn't feel like it belonged to the morning and flipped the phone over. Zaxi 41 Mama recorded. Her thumb trembled. "It will be nothing," she told the room, and pressed play. The first hours were her small sounds. Breath, sheets, a throat clear she didn't remember. At 2:11 a.m., the building's bones made a soft ping, like a pipe greeting itself. Then silence again. At 3:04, a slow scrape, the sound of fabric moving against painted wood from the direction of the door. She paused. The chair hadn't moved. She zoomed in on the waveform. The sound was thin but real. At 3:17, her breath hitched. She murmured something indecipherable. At 3:19, a whisper. Not a word, just air passing close to the microphone. But the phone was on the dresser now, away from her face. The whisper was where the phone was. She replayed the 5 seconds 10 times. The fourth time through, she heard it, faint, like someone practicing the shape of a name without committing to it. Ma, and then the rest swallowed. She set the phone down like it might answer if she stared hard enough. At 4:02 a.m., the recording changed. There was a click, not a door, not a lamp. The small single click a phone makes when you tap the screen to wake it, except the phone was face down and in airplane mode. Right after the click, a soft drag as if a fingertip moved slowly across glass. The microphone captured the microscopic grit of skin and dust. Maya's throat closed. She scrubbed back and listened again, this time with the volume lower because somehow that felt safer. Click, drag, a breath near the mic that wasn't hers. Then, clearer than before, closer than the first night, words, "You're doing better." Her own breathing in the recording changed, deeper now, almost a sigh, as if her sleeping self had been waiting to be graded. She wanted to throw up. She wanted to throw the phone. Instead, she scrolled 20 seconds forward in a panic that felt like hope and hit play. The voice returned, lower, amused. "Left side." A pause. "Good girl." She stopped the file so hard her thumb hurt. The word lodged under her ribs like a stone. She rewound, played it again, held the phone away from her face like distance could turn a sentence into static. Good girl. It didn't even sound cruel. That made it worse. The kindness in it was a shape she recognized from childhood. Someone telling you followed directions well. Something in her chest began to shake, and she hated that it felt like relief and terror at once. She forced herself to keep listening because the only way out was through. At 4:23, there was another soft click, then a perfectly even cadence of breath not matched to hers. The voice spoke again, almost pleased. "Don't turn over." She didn't. The app recorded her staying still for a full 2 minutes, like a pet obeying. At 4:26, from the far side of the room by the door, the faintest sound of something tapping the chair leg. 1, 2. As if testing whether it would give. It didn't. Her own voice, small, collapsed by sleep, murmured, "No." When the file ended, she was already crying without tears, breath shallow, hands cold. She checked the door. The chair wedged hard, rubber feet bitten into the wood, the chain perfect. She checked the window latches. Set. She opened the closet and stared at the winter coat like it could be a person if a sentence insisted hard enough. Nothing. Her apartment was the same list as last night. Only the recording was different, and it was too different to be the morning's fault. Her phone buzzed. A new text from the same unknown number. Better. Then, 10 seconds later, as if whoever wrote it could see her thumb hovering over the screen. "Don't turn over." She didn't reply. She backed up slowly until the bed met her knees and sat before gravity chose for her. She saved the file under a name she thought she might be able to say out loud without shaking. Night 43, dresser. She added a note, airplane mode, voice moved with phone. She set the phone down face up and stared at her own bent reflection in the black glass. Oh, it made her look like she was nodding. She wasn't. That afternoon, she would go to Aaron. She would play everything. She would not spend a single hour alone. That was the plan. But plans are paper and voices are hands. Somewhere in the apartment, the fridge motor kicked on, and the sound made her want to leave the room and never come back. Maya didn't tell herself she was being brave when she drove to Aaron's apartment the next morning just functional. That was what sane people did. They took data to someone else. They said, "Tell me if I'm losing it." The road looked normal. The world still worked. The florist was open. School buses made their noise. Sunlight reflected off windshields like proof of physics. She kept her hands tight on the wheel so she wouldn't look at the phone on the passenger seat, where both recordings sat in a folder called Sleep Study. Aaron lived 15 minutes away in a clean complex with playgrounds and lawns trimmed by people who trusted daylight. Maya had driven there before, but pulling into the parking lot now. Every sound the car door click. The gravel under her shoes felt slightly delayed, like the world was buffering. Aaron opened the door in leggings and a mug of coffee, a slice of real morning in her hand. "You look awful," she said gently. "That's diagnostic, not judgment." Maya tried to laugh and failed. She sat at the kitchen island where twin cereal bowls waited for kids already gone to school. The apartment smelled like toast and laundry. It was the kind of safe that should fix you. She unlocked her phone, slid it across the counter. "You should hear it with good speakers," she said. Aaron connected the phone to her Bluetooth speaker and pressed play. The sound of Maya's breathing filled the small kitchen normal, intimate, a rhythm you stop noticing until someone else hears it. Then the voice came. "Don't turn over." Even in daylight, it dropped the temperature. Aaron stopped moving. "It's not distortion," she said finally. "You can hear the cell of a click." Maya nodded. "And the second file," she said. Aaron hesitated, then pressed play again. The scrape, the exhale, the click. Then, You're doing better. The speaker made it too real, gave it space and body. The words seemed to move from wall to wall. The air went still. The refrigerator compressor chose that moment to stop humming, and silence closed in. Aaron leaned in, squinting at the waveform. There's layering. Like, see this? That's you. But this, she pointed to a second thinner line. That's under everything. A constant low frequency. Could be HVAC. The voice, left side. Aaron jerked back. Jesus. She stopped the file, looked at the door as if something physical had entered. You said airplane mode? Everything off. Then someone was in your apartment. I'd have heard it. The door, the floor, something. Aaron pressed her palm to her mouth, thinking. Let's check the metadata. She opened the app's info screen. Recorded 3:19 a.m. Below that, a tiny GPS icon glowed faintly gray. She tapped it. The coordinates opened in a map preview and centered not on Maya's address but on Aaron's building. Maya froze. That's impossible. My phone was in my room. Aaron closed the app, opened it again. Same coordinates. Bug, she said automatically. The way people say, bless you, even when they stop believing in blessings. Maya pulled the phone back, hands shaking. You think it followed me? No, Aaron said too fast. No, it's syncing wrong. Or maybe it cached your last visit. I was here 3 weeks ago. Aaron didn't have an answer for that. The kitchen light flickered once. Then the speaker hissed a short static burst like the sound a throat makes before speaking. Aaron grabbed the remote, switched it off, then unplugged it entirely. The hiss stopped. The quiet felt too intentional. We're turning everything off, Aaron said, voice tight now. Practical courage stretched thin. She unplugged the coffee maker. The microwave clock went dark, even the smart thermostat. There, she said. Now nothing's listening. Maya held up her phone. The screen was off, but from the black reflection, a white waveform moved slowly across the glass, as if something were still recording. It's not possible, she whispered. She pressed the side button hard until the screen went blank. Aaron's mug hit the counter softly. You're staying here tonight, she said. Maya nodded. She wanted to believe the decision had weight, that safety could be declared like a holiday. They left the phone face down on the counter, under a dish towel, the way you hide mirrors when someone dies. That night, Maya slept in Aaron's guest room. No app, no phone, no sound except the small breathing of someone else's house. For the first time in weeks, she dreamed nothing. At 3 a.m., Aaron woke to her phone buzzing on the nightstand. The screen showed a new audio file saved to the shared family cloud. Night 44 guest room. Duration, 02:56. She didn't open it. Not yet. Aaron told herself she wouldn't touch the file until sunrise. That's what responsible adults do. They delay curiosity until it's less dangerous. But lying there, her room half lit by the street lamp bleeding through curtains, the thought pulsed under her ribs. Night 44 guest room. The phone had synced through the cloud automatically. She hadn't done anything. That made it worse. Curiosity isn't a spark. It's pressure you open things to let it breathe. At 3:14 a.m., she gave in. She turned the volume down low, so quiet she could barely hear the opening static. The first few seconds were just room noise, soft creaks, the pulse of pipes, her own shifting. Then, the voice. Don't turn over. It was the same tone Maya had played earlier that day. Calm, measured, almost gentle. Aaron sat up slowly, pulling the blanket tight around her shoulders. The recording picked up a whisper of movement, her own sheets rustling, and then, from the direction of the microphone, a sound she couldn't place. It wasn't a breath or a word. It was listening. A teeny inhale, the kind that says, I'm waiting for you to move so I can know where you are. She pressed pause and sat there staring at the waveform, at the small peaks that marked the places her heart had stopped. Then she hit play again, because humans have a terrible need to confirm horror twice. This time, she caught something new between breaths, a faint click, like a fingernail tapping glass. 1 tap, 2, 3, then the voice again, closer than before, as if the speaker had leaned down toward the microphone. Aaron, her own name. It wasn't possible. The phone had been charging in the living room. She had turned on no apps, no permissions, no recording functions. Still, she heard the bed springs groan softly in the audio, matching her own shift from minutes before. The timeline of the recording matched her sleep in real time. Her throat went dry. She stopped the playback and opened the file info. Created, 3 a.m. Saved, 3:13 a.m. Location, living room. The living room, where the phone had been plugged in across the apartment. She felt her chest locked tight like her lungs had chosen to stay still to keep from being found. She unplugged the phone and held it in both hands, watching the seconds crawl across the screen. At 3:15, a faint tap came from the wall to her left, 3 knocks. Polite, measured. She froze. The sound didn't come again. In the morning, she told herself it had been the heat expanding the drywall. The morning made everything smaller. Daylight is the best liar we have. By the time the kids came running into the kitchen for cereal, she'd already folded the fear into that box labeled weird dream stuff. She called Maya at 9:02. Maya's voice came through thin, sleepless. "You got it too?" Aaron asked. Maya didn't answer right away. "I didn't record last night, I know, but it did." Aaron hesitated. "It said my name." Maya went quiet long enough that Aaron thought the call had dropped. Then, "Don't listen to it again." "I already did." "Then delete it." "I can't." Aaron checked the delete option was grayed out. The file wasn't listed under her phone's internal storage anymore. It had migrated somewhere else. Shared audio cache, a directory she didn't remember creating. She opened it. Inside were two other files she hadn't seen before. Night 41 Unknown and Night 42 Friday, both time-stamped before Maya had sent her anything. "Aaron," Maya said through the speaker, voice shaking now. "My files are gone." "The folder's empty." "They're here," Aaron whispered. "What do you mean?" "I mean they moved." Something thumped once in the background on Maya's end. A hollow sound, like the back of a headboard against drywall. Aaron's phone crackled. A low hiss filled her ear, not static, not quite breath. Then, from the speaker pressed against her skin, the voice said, perfectly clear, "Left side." Aaron dropped the phone. It hit the tile and kept talking. "Good girls, listen." Then the line went dead. Aaron didn't pick the phone up right away. It lay there on the kitchen tile, screen down, still glowing faintly from underneath like something breathing in glass. The last words it spoke, "Good girls, listen," echoed around the apartment long after the speaker went silent. She stood barefoot, waiting for the air to stop vibrating, waiting for normal to return. The way sound fades after thunder. But silence never brought normal back. It just stretched, thinner and thinner, until it became another kind of noise. She crouched slowly, one hand hovering above the phone like you'd hover above a hot stove. It was cold to the touch. The battery indicator, when she finally flipped it over, was blank, no icon, no percentage, just a white screen pulsing once every second. She dropped it into a drawer, slammed it shut and whispered, "Done." That was her promise to the empty air. She found a paper notebook, the kind she used in college before cloud storage made people think their words couldn't disappear. She wrote the time, 3:23 a.m. She wrote, phone spoke again, said my name, said "Good girls, listen." Deleted files now show up under cache. Then she closed the notebook because sometimes the act of writing things down makes them stop being true. By sunrise, she was in her car, half-dressed, eyes burning from no sleep. Maya's apartment was 12 minutes away, and the drive felt like one long inhale she forgot to finish. When she reached the building, Maya was already at the door. No makeup, no shoes, face hollow from a night spent hearing something that hadn't happened yet. Aaron barely had to ask. Maya lifted her phone screen, cracked, folder empty. "They're gone," she said. "Everything. But the app still says I've recorded 44 nights. Deleted cache?" I deleted the app. They stared at each other in the hallway, the hum of the florist's cooler below them a kind of heartbeat they both leaned on. Aaron stepped inside, set her bag down. "We go analog," she said, trying to sound decisive. "No phones, no Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi, nothing with a mic." Maya nodded. They both powered off their phones, dropped them in a metal mixing bowl like it was an offering, and covered it with a baking sheet. "Faraday cage," Aaron muttered, "more or less." They spent the day like survivors waiting for the next storm. Windows open, no screens, no background noise. It was exhausting, the effort of being unconnected. Every sound had Toby noticed, named, explained. The fridge hum, motor, the floor creak, wood swelling, the faint hiss near the vent, pressure equalizing. Every label was a prayer. By dusk, the quiet felt heavier, not safer. The city outside looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. The florist closed. The last car passed. The air flattened. Aaron caught herself whispering, "We're fine," every few minutes, like an affirmation. At 8:42 p.m., Maya's laptop unplugged, closed, Wi-Fi disabled clicked once. A small, polite mechanical sound, then another. Aaron looked up from the couch. "It's off," she said. "It's completely off." Maya crossed the room and touched the lid, warm. She opened it. The screen stayed black, but faint static leaked from the speakers, like breath through a locked door. Then a whisper, so low they had to lean in to catch it. Still listening, Aaron slammed it shut, heart hammering. "No," she said. "We're not doing this again." She unplugged it entirely and threw it in the closet, shut the door, and pressed her back against it, as if weight could stop sound. They sat together in the fading light, afraid to speak because even silence now felt recorded. Somewhere deep inside the apartment, the closet door creaked. A thin, rhythmic tapping started, 2 slow knocks, a pause, then 2 more. Aaron stood. "It's pipes," she said automatically. Maya didn't answer. She was staring at the metal bowl on the counter, Theone holding both their phones. It was vibrating gently, lid rattling against the rim in tiny metallic clicks. Neither of them moved. The rattling stopped. Then a faint glow seeped from under the lid, pale blue like a notification light muffled by skin. The air pressure in the room changed, the kind of drop that happens before thunder or confession. Erin whispered. We turned them off. Maya nodded slowly, tears catching in the corner of her eye. Maybe it didn't need them on. The bowl went still. The light died, and in the thick quiet that followed, the voice spoke, again, not from the phones, not from the laptop, not from any direction they could name, just a shape made of sound hanging in the air, closer than breath. Good girls listen, and this time it said it twice. They didn't sleep that night, not because they were scared, at least that's what they told themselves, but because sleep felt like a kind of permission. They stayed in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the couch with every light turned on, talking about nothing in particular. They spoke about grocery lists, about weather, about the sound of the vending machine downstairs that sometimes clanked when it wasn't being used. But every few sentences, one of them would stop mid-sentence and listen. It wasn't what they were hearing, it was when they weren't hearing anything at all. The silence had weight now. It wasn't empty. It was thick, shaped, waiting. When Erin stopped talking, she could feel the air fold around the last sound she made, like the room was taking it from her and keeping it. She tried to distract herself by folding the throw blanket, then unfolding it, then folding it again. Maya watched her and said, "You can hear it too, right?" Erin didn't answer because she wasn't sure which part of her question was the it. At 5:07 a.m., the fridge motor kicked on, and both of them jumped like it was a gunshot. The normal world was starting to wake. Traffic murmured far below. Early trains clattered, and that should have helped. It didn't. Daylight didn't erase anything. It only made the fear look cleaner. They decided to leave the apartment. Maya grabbed her keys, Erin her bag, both of them carefully avoiding the drawer where the phones had been. They didn't look at the metal bowl, though Erin could swear she heard the faintest echo under the lid, like a heartbeat counting them out the door. Outside, the morning looked harmless. Gray sky, puddles from last night's rain, the florist's gate half rolled up. They didn't speak until they reached the coffee shop 2 blocks away. The shop was full of sound, milk steaming, cups clinking, soft jazz. It should have been a relief, but even here, the quiet between songs felt wrong, hollowed out. They sat near the window. Erin sipped her drink and said, "Maybe it's just suggestion. Pattern matching. We hear static and our brains fill in words." Maya nodded. "Except it said your name. That could be coincidence. And mine," Maya added. In the last file before it vanished, it said, "To now." Erin's hand tightened around her cup. "It's not real." Maya looked out the window, voice small. "Then why do I keep hearing you think?" Erin froze. "What?" Maya's eyes stayed on the glass. "You just thought, don't say that, before you said anything." Erin stared at her, pulse rising. "You guessed. Say something else," Maya said quietly. Erin shook her head, forcing a laugh that didn't sound like her. "You're tired, that's all." Maya's voice lowered. "Say something else." Erin closed her eyes and, without speaking, thought, this isn't happening. Maya flinched like she'd been slapped. "Don't think that." The cup slipped from Erin's hand and hit the floor. Coffee spread in a thin brown lake under the table. Neither of them moved to clean it up. A barista turned, called, "You guys okay?" And the sound snapped them back to the surface. Erin forced a smile, nodded, mumbled something about being clumsy. The normal world resumed, but inside both women felt the same impossible certainty. Their thoughts weren't private anymore. They walked back to the apartment without talking. Every time one of them started to form a thought, the other reacted. It was small things at first. Maya turning her head before Erin spoke, Erin finishing a sentence that hadn't been started aloud. But by the time they reached the building, both were shaking. Inside, they didn't need to speak at all. Their thoughts moved like echoes between them. Low, soft, impossible to locate. At first it was terrifying. Then it was worse. It began to feel normal. Erin sat on the couch and whispered, "It's us now." Maya nodded once. "It listens through us." From somewhere deep in the apartment, the metal bowl in the kitchen gave one faint ring, like a single bell struck gently with a fingertip. And in the silence that followed, the echo came back not through speakers or static, but through their own breath, whispering both their names at once. By morning, they had a planned distance. It sounded logical, scientific even. Erin would stay at their sister's for a few days, and Maya would keep the apartment. They told each other it wasn't fear, it was an experiment. If the voice only came when they were together, maybe being apart would break the loop. Erin packed a small bag just closed, charger, toothbrush. She didn't take the phones or the laptop. When she left, the air in the apartment felt lighter, as if the walls exhaled once she stepped through the door. The drive out of the city was calm, the kind of calm that made her nervous. The radio stayed off. Every so often she'd glance at the passenger seat, half expecting to see something sitting there. The empty seat didn't make her feel any better. At her sister's house, everything was aggressively normal. Kids' drawings on the fridge, a dog barking at its reflection in the window, coffee already brewing. Erin let herself sink into it. She spent the morning helping with breakfast, pretending to scroll on a silent phone. When her sister asked if she was all right, she smiled and said she'd just been working too much. That was a lie, but it was the kind of lie everyone believed. By noon, she almost convinced herself it was over. The The quiet here was ordinary. It had the soft background hum of appliances and voices. It didn't feel heavy, not until she went upstairs to the guest room. The curtains were half open, and light spilled across the bed in wide gold lines. She sat down, meaning to rest, and closed her eyes for 1 minute. When she opened them, the clock on the nightstand had skipped ahead an hour. Her sister hadn't called her. The house was quiet again, too quiet. She reached for her phone before remembering she hadn't brought it. That's when she heard it, just a single breath, not behind her, not outside, but inside her head. A whisper shaped like her own name, so soft she thought she might have imagined it. Aaron. She froze. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. She said out loud, "No." The silence didn't answer. It didn't need to. A warmth spread behind her eyes, the same feeling you get when someone stares at the back of your neck. She turned slowly, scanning the corners of the room. Nothing. Just furniture and sunlight, but the warmth stayed, pulsing. At the same moment, miles away in the apartment, Maya was washing dishes. Her sink was full of cold water, and the metal bowl that had held their phones was sitting beside her. The lid was off now, the phones still inside but dark. She wasn't touching them when her head lifted suddenly, as if something had tugged her name from far away. She whispered, "Aaron?" Across the distance, Aaron's heart jumped. The sound didn't come from her ears. It came from inside, from the same place the whisper had lived. "Maya?" she said, barely moving her lips. "I can hear you," Maya's voice said. Aaron's breath hitched. "How?" "I don't know. I didn't say it out loud." Aaron pressed her palms to her temples. "Stop thinking for a second," Maya tried. But the silence that followed was full of noise, heartbeat, breath, the soft static of being alive. Aaron could feel it, like the inside of someone else's skull brushing against hers. It made her dizzy. She got up, stumbled to the window, opened it wide. The wind didn't help. "Aaron," Maya said again inside her head. "It's louder now. Don't answer," Aaron thought. But she knew Maya heard that too, because the next thought it came back wasn't hers. "It doesn't matter where you go." That one wasn't Maya. Both women froze, one in a kitchen, one in a sunlit guest room. The voice came through them both, the same phrase echoing across distance like two speakers playing one recording. "Good girls, listen." Aaron grabbed her bag and ran downstairs. The dog barked once and then went silent. Her sister called after her, but she didn't answer. She got into the car, slammed the door, and started the engine. The dashboard clock said 3:00 p.m., but in the rearview mirror, for just a second, she swore she saw the digits flip pour AM and the faint glow of a waveform pulsing across the glass. Aaron didn't remember driving back to the city. The road was a blur of tail lights and wet pavement, a tunnel made of motion and noise. When she parked outside Maya's building, the rain had stopped, but the street still glistened, reflecting the neon from the laundromat sign across the road. She sat in the car with both hands on the steering wheel, breathing through her mouth because her nose felt clogged with something thick like sleep. She hadn't slept in almost 2 days, but her body didn't feel tired. It felt borrowed. Upstairs, the apartment smelled the same as before. Coffee, cleaning spray, and the faint sweetness of flowers that weren't there. Maya was sitting on the couch, knees pulled up to her chest, eyes unfocused. She looked up when Aaron entered, but it wasn't surprise, it was recognition, like she'd been expecting the moment itself to arrive. "You heard it too," Maya said. Aaron nodded. "In my head, it spoke." Maya pressed a finger to her temple. "It doesn't sound like anything. It just is. Like when you remember your own voice." They sat in silence, testing the air. It wasn't quiet, not exactly. There was the sound of water dripping somewhere, a radiator ticking, traffic humming beyond the glass. But underneath those sounds, they both felt the same pressure, as if something large was waiting just behind the noise. "I tried not to think," Maya said. "But then it finished the thought for me." Aaron looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" "I was thinking, please stop. And then before I could finish, it said why, in my head. Not out loud, like it was replying." Aaron's stomach turned cold. "It's learning our timing. Maybe it always knew." They stared at each other, breathing in sync without meaning to. The light from the window cut across the room in pale stripes like invisible bars. Aaron wanted to say something, to break the rhythm, but Maya's mouth moved first. "Don't say it," Maya whispered. Aaron froze. She hadn't spoken yet. "Say what?" "The thing you just thought." "I didn't." Aaron stopped herself. She had thought it. What if it's not copying? What if it's writing? Maya's lips trembled. "It is." The sound that came next wasn't quite a sound. It was like a thought turned inside out. It filled the room but didn't move the air. It wasn't loud, but it was complete. "You share the same mind now." Aaron's eyes darted toward the kitchen, where the metal bowl still sat on the counter. The lid was off this time, and both phones were visible. Dark screens turned upward like closed eyes. She couldn't remember opening it, but she must have. She must have. Maya stood and took one step toward it. "Don't," Aaron said, her voice sharp. "I just want to see if it—" "Maya." Maya froze mid-step. Then, without looking back, she said in a voice that wasn't quite hers, "You already know what it wants." The air shifted. Every light in the apartment flickered once, long enough for Aaron to see the reflection of 3 figures in the window. Herself, Maya, and something else between them. Same shape, same posture, no face. When the light steadied, the middle reflection was gone. Maya exhaled like she'd been underwater. It's not just in us, she said quietly. It's using Yusto talk to itself. Erin didn't ask what that meant. She didn't need to. The thought was already in her head, perfectly formed, perfectly placed, as if she'd been waiting for it. Good girls listen. Maya whispered the same words at the exact same time. The clock on the wall clicked to 3 p.m., and in the reflection of the metal bowl, both their faces looked identical, eyes wide, lips parted, listening for something that had already finished speaking. That night the city went quiet early. The sky turned a heavy orange before dark, and the windows caught the last of the light like they were burning on the inside. Erin and Maya didn't speak much. The silence between them had grown into something that wasn't silence anymore. It had texture, a low hum beneath every word they didn't say. They both kept glancing at the notebook on the table, the one Erin had written in after the first recording. It sat open to a blank page, pen lying across it like a small weapon that no one wanted to touch. At some point, Erin said, "We should write it down again." Her voice was small, like she was talking through cloth. "Everything that's happened, every detail, just so it's real." Maya nodded, though her eyes didn't leave the notebook. "What if that's what it wants?" Erin shrugged. "Then it already has us." She sat down at the table and picked up the pen. The first line came easily enough. Night 47. Still hearing the voice. Feels closer now. The sound of the ballpoint scratching across paper was grounding, almost comforting. She kept writing, listing facts, the files, the shared thoughts, the reflection. Maya watched over her shoulder, breathing unevenly. When Erin paused, the pen kept moving. It was subtle at first, a small twitch, like her hand had caught a nerve. Then the line beneath her writing curved, forming letters that weren't hers. Maya gasped, "Erin, stop. I'm not." Erin tried to pull her hand away, but her fingers wouldn't let go of the pen. It felt heavy now, like someone else's grip was around hers. The ink scrawled across the page in fast, jerky strokes, spelling words they both read in silence. "Good girls write." Erin threw the pen across the room. It hit the wall and rolled under the couch. She clutched her hand. It tingled, the skin along her knuckles pale where her grip had been forced tight. The notebook stayed open. The last line of ink shimmered faintly, still wet. Then slowly, new letters began forming. No pen this time, just ink appearing like condensation. "You left the door open." Maya backed away, shaking her head. No, we didn't." She turned toward the apartment door, but it was shut, locked, chain fastened. The notebook wrote again, "Not that door." Erin felt the air behind her shift, cold, then warm, then cold again. She turned toward the kitchen. The metal bowl was gone. Only the lid remained, resting upside down on the counter. "Maya," she whispered. It moved. Maya didn't look. Her eyes were still on the notebook, where the writing continued, faster now, ink forming without pause. "It learned your voices. Now it learns your hands. Now it learns your names." The letters started overlapping, words collapsing into themselves like the paper couldn't contain them. Erin slammed the cover shut, but the scratching sound didn't stop. It kept going inside the notebook, the pages shifting as if something underneath was trying to get out. Maya ran to the sink and turned on the faucet, grabbed the notebook, and shoved it under the running water. The ink bled, the paper warped, but the words didn't fade. They sank deeper, darkening until the page looked bruised. When the water turned off, the sound didn't. The hissing continued, steady, whispering. Erin realized it wasn't water anymore. It was breath. A voice rose through the wet paper, muffled but clear enough to understand. "I don't need your phone." Maya dropped the notebook. It hit the counter with a wet slap. The voice kept speaking, now from everywhere. The walls, the air, the soaked paper still dripping in the sink. "I can write myself." The lights flickered. The faucet turned on again by itself, spraying cold water across the floor. Erin and Maya backed away until their shoulders hit the wall. The notebook lay half open in the sink, pages twitching like it was breathing. Then it stopped. Everything stopped. Only one new line appeared, perfectly centered, ink drying instantly this time. They didn't need to look at the clock. They both knew it was right. The apartment didn't feel like their apartment anymore. Every corner seemed slightly wrong, as if the walls had shifted half an inch while they weren't looking. The air was heavier too, not suffocating, just thick enough that breathing felt shared. Erin stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the damp notebook they'd left on the counter. It had stopped moving hours ago, but she could still hear something faint beneath the paper, like a pulse. Maya sat by the window, her face pale and tired, watching the city below without really seeing it. "I think it's quiet now," Erin whispered. Maya didn't answer. The words hung there too long, stretching out before dissolving into silence. Erin waited, then added, "Maybe it's gone." The apartment made a sound, then a low creak, long and deliberate, like the floorboards exhaling after holding their breath too long. It came from the hallway near the bedrooms. Erin turned her head, eyes straining in the dim light. "Maya?" Still no response. Erin took one slow step toward the hall. The air shifted temperature as she moved forward, cool, then warm, then cold again, like walking through someone else's memory. The pictures on the wall were tilted, just slightly, each frame hanging at a different angle. She reached out to straighten one, but before her fingers touched the glass, her reflection blinked. She froze. She hadn't blinked. The reflection's eyes closed once, slow and deliberate, then opened again. It smiled just barely. Erin stumbled back, knocking against the wall. "Maya," she hissed. From the living room, Maya finally spoke, her voice distant. "I see it too." Erin turned. Maya hadn't moved from the window, but the reflection in the glass behind her own silhouette was still staring forward, unblinking. When Maya turned her head, the reflection didn't follow. "It just watched. It's copying the space," Erin said. "No," Maya whispered, eyes wide. "It's learning it." As if to prove her right, the light fixture above them flickered once, then again, then began a slow pulse that matched the rhythm of their breathing. The reflection in the window pulsed with it, shadows deepening, shapes stretching. The walls looked softer now, not flat surfaces, but skin that could flex. "Don't move," Erin said quietly. "Just don't." Something brushed against her ankle, a cold draft that wasn't a draft at all. She looked down. The rug beneath her feet rippled, the fibers moving like grass in a slow wind. She stepped back onto the tile, heart racing. The floor creaked once more, then settled. From the kitchen came a sound that didn't belong, a single chair sliding out from the table. No one had touched it. Maya's voice trembled. "It's answering." "What?" "The apartment. It's listening back." The sound came again, this time from the walls. A dull, hollow knock. Once, twice, then clear as if someone spoke just inches away. Still listening, Erin backed toward the door. "We need to leave, right now." But when she reached for the handle, her hand stopped. The metal was warm. Too warm. The lock wouldn't turn. She pulled harder. The door didn't move. Behind her, the living room light dimmed until only the glow from outside remained. In their reflection of the window, the room still looked bright, but the reflections of Erin and Maya weren't standing where they were supposed to be. They were closer together now, side by side, mouths slightly open like they were whispering something the real women couldn't hear. The notebook on the counter flipped open by itself. The pages turned fast one after another, until they stopped on a fresh page. Words began forming, neat and slow. "Don't leave." Erin ran to the counter and slammed it shut again, but the message had already spread. The same words were now etched faintly into the condensation on the window, carved into the thin layer of fog that had crept in from the outside. "Don't leave." Maya backed away, shaking her head. "It's not keeping us here," she said, voice trembling. "It's keeping itself here." The walls gave one last deep groan, and somewhere inside that sound like breath through plaster, they both heard the same quiet whisper, almost gentle home, and the lights went out. When the lights went out, neither of them screamed. It wasn't that they were brave, it was that the sound had been taken from them. The apartment was still there in outline, faint gray from the street outside, the hum of something alive beneath the silence. Erin could hear her own heartbeat, but not the rhythm of her breath. Maya's silhouette was only a few feet away, sitting perfectly still by the window. "Don't move," Erin whispered. The words didn't echo. They didn't even sound like they had air behind them. They just existed for a second and then folded into the dark. The faint orange glow from the street lamp outside outlined the furniture, the couch, the counter, the doorway, but the shapes didn't look right. They looked duplicated, doubled. The couch had a shadow that wasn't a shadow. The counter had an edge that flickered like it was trying to decide where it belonged. Erin took a careful step forward. The floor felt soft, almost spongy, and when she lifted her foot, she thought she saw something stretch below the carpet like muscle, under thin skin. She blinked, and it was gone. "Maya," she whispered. Maya didn't answer. Erin reached her hand out, touching the wall to steady herself, but the wall didn't feel like drywall anymore. It pulsed faintly once, like a quiet heartbeat through plaster. She yanked her hand back, skin cold. The shape of her palm stayed imprinted there for a moment before fading. "Please say something," Erin said, louder this time. Maya finally turned her head. In the dim light, her eyes looked darker, too wide. "It's changing," she said softly. "What is?" "The apartment. It's rebuilding itself." Erin followed her gaze to the far end of the room. The doorway to the hall was different now, wider, rounder at the top, like it had been remade from memory. Beyond it, she could see movement. Not a person, not a shadow, but something like the outline of a hallway forming in slow motion. The walls were shifting, folding inward, reforming. "I think it's making another version of us," Maya said, barely breathing the words. The sound came again, like pages turning, slow and steady. Erin looked back at the counter. The soaked notebook had opened itself again, the wet pages parting one by one. But instead of writing, the paper showed faint images, ghost-like reflections of the room as it had been a moment before, like it was recording reality in ink. Each page flipped, revealing another version of the apartment. Then one showed them, two women standing side by side, except their faces were wrong smoother, unfinished, like wax left too long in the sun. The pages began to move faster. The images blurred. Erin stepped closer and saw her own reflection staring up from the paper, blinking independently of her. Maya grabbed her arm. "It's copying us." The floor rippled again. This time, the ripple spread from the kitchen outward, crossing the room in a wave. The sound that followed wasn't quite a noise. It was more like breath being drawn in by something enormous. The air pressure dropped. Erin's ears popped. The reflection in the notebook smiled. They both backed toward the door, but the handle was gone now, just smooth wood where it should have been. Erin pounded her hand against it once. The surface flexed, soft and hollow. From the other side came the faintest sound knocking. 3 taps, steady, polite. Maya's voice trembled. "That's us." Erin turned toward her. "What?" "It's not outside," Maya said, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It's on the other side of the wall. The other us." Erin looked back at the door. The knocking stopped. Then quietly, someone whispered from behind their own voice. Calm and familiar. "Let me in." The apartment walls pulsed once more, and somewhere deep inside the silence, something began breathing in sync with them both. The knocking stopped, but the echo didn't. It lingered in the walls like a heartbeat that refused to die, soft and steady, as if the apartment itself were trying to remember how to breathe. Erin pressed her palm against the smooth wooden surface where the doorknob had been. It felt warm, almost human. Maya stood behind her, whispering, "Don't open it." Erin didn't move. She was thinking about the voice, the way it had sounded like her own, the way it hadn't felt angry. "Just patient. It already is open," she said, and it was true. Somewhere deep in her chest, she could feel the hinge turning not in wood or metal, but in her. Something shifting quietly, inviting itself through. A sound rolled through the apartment, low and deep, like a slow inhale through water. The light from the window dimmed to a dull copper. The walls looked thinner now, almost translucent. Behind them, something moved an outline, not human, but shaped enough to suggest that it had learned from them. Erin stepped back. The air smelled like rain and static. She turned to Maya. "If we don't face it, it'll just keep making more." Maya shook her head, eyes wide. "You don't understand. It's not copying, it's replacing." Before Erin could respond, the wall in front of them rippled once, then split down the middle. It didn't break. It opened. A long seam appeared, glowing faintly from within, and the shape of a door formed where there hadn't been one. It was the same door that used to lead to the hallway, only now it led somewhere else. Erin looked at Maya. "If I open it, don't follow me." Maya reached out. "You won't come back." "I already didn't," Erin whispered. The seam widened with a quiet sigh. On the other side, there was a hallway that looked exactly like theirs, same floor, same pictures on the wall, but dimmer, softer, like it had been built from memory instead of matter. And in that hallway stood 2 figures. They were Erin and Maya, or something close. Their faces were pale, waxy, their eyes darker, too focused. They stood perfectly still, mirroring every breath and tilt of the head a fraction of a second late, like a reflection learning to keep up. The other Erin raised her hand first. The gesture was slow, almost kind. Her mouth moved, forming words that came a heartbeat later from the air between them. "You left the door open." Maya clutched Erin's arm. "Close it," but Erin couldn't. Her hand moved on its own, drawn forward as if the space between them had become magnetic. The other Erin smiled faintly, then took one step closer. The movement was silent, but it carried sound, the faint rustle of paper turning, breath over water, the sound of a notebook writing by itself. The real Erin whispered, "What happens if we touch?" The other her answered without sound, lips forming the word, "Trade." Maya yanked her backward, but it was too late. The 2 versions met hand to hand, skin against skin. The room flashed once not light, but absence of it, a blink from reality itself. For a split second, everything inverted. The reflections stood solid, and the real women flickered like shadows on a wall. Erin saw the room from both sides at once, their apartment, and the duplicate overlapping perfectly. 2 realities laid over each other like film negatives. Then, silence. When it cleared, Erin was standing alone. The door was gone again. Maya was gone, too. The apartment was bright with morning light that hadn't been there a second ago. The notebook on the counter was dry now, open to a clean white page. Across the top, written in calm, perfect handwriting, were 4 words, "You're on the other side." Erin didn't know how long she'd been standing there. Morning light had already filled the room, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt staged, like the world was pretending to move on without her. The apartment looked normal again, but too clean, too arranged. The chair was pushed in. The rug was straight. The door had a handle again, polished like it had never been gone. Only the notebook on the counter betrayed the illusion, still open to that single white page that said, "You're on the other side." She whispered Maya's name once, then again. No answer. The apartment swallowed the sound and gave nothing back. Erin reached for the notebook. The moment her fingers brushed the paper, her phone buzzed inside her pocket. She hadn't even realized she still had it. The screen lit up with a new file notification. It wasn't from any app she recognized, just a plain title, Title, Last Recording, MP4. Her throat tightened. She pressed play. The screen showed the apartment from above as if filmed from the ceiling, like a security feed that shouldn't exist. There she was, standing by the door. And there was Maya, next to her. Erin felt the breath leave her chest. It wasn't the past. It was right now. The angle matched perfectly. The video was recording the present. She looked up at the ceiling. No camera, no light. Just plaster and quiet. But on the screen, something shifted. Behind the two of them, behind the version that was still moving on the phone, there was another shape forming in the room. A darker outline, rising from the floor like smoke thickening into form. On screen, Maya turned first. Erin watched her mirror self open her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The recording had no audio, only static. The dark shape reached toward them, its fingers long enough to blur the edges of the frame. Erin dropped the phone. It hit the counter and slid to the floor. The video kept playing. The light in the apartment dimmed again, the way it always did before something happened. Erin picked up the phone with shaking hands. The video showed the other Erin lifting her head slowly. Her eyes met the camera. Then, in perfect sync, Erin felt her own body freeze. The figure on the screen smiled. The static stopped. The video froze on that image, two women, one real, one not, both staring at the same unseen thing. Then one last line of text flickered across the bottom of the screen. Stop watching. You're not supposed to see this side. The phone went black. The apartment went quiet. And behind her, somewhere deep in the wall, she heard Maya's voice whisper, tired and soft. You left the door open again. The light coming through the window didn't feel like sunlight anymore. It was flat and silver, spilling into the room without warmth. Erin stood still, phone in hand, afraid that even breathing might make the world tilt again. The walls didn't pulse now. They just waited. The notebook on the counter lay open, a single line at the bottom of the page appearing on letter at a time, like something thinking slowly, "Are you still listening?" Erin whispered, "No." The writing stopped. Then, a heartbeat later, another line appeared. "Yes, you are." She took a step back, shaking her head. The air had a faint hum under it, the same tone that used to come from the phone speaker before every recording. She realized it wasn't a sound at all, it was vibration, a rhythm coming from the building itself. The floorboards trembled under her feet, each pulse syncing with her heartbeat until she couldn't tell which was hers. Across the room, the TV turned on by itself. The screen flickered between channels that didn't exist now, static. A frame of her own face caught mid-blink. She watched as the image on the screen began to move a half-second late, repeating her gestures imperfectly. Her reflection smiled first. The phone in her hand vibrated once more. The display showed the same white text as before, last recording.mp4, but now it was counting down. 2:59, 0 PBO. No 57, Maya, she whispered, because saying the name made the silence feel smaller. From behind the wall came an answer soft, like someone whispering through drywall. You're almost done. Erin dropped the phone. It clattered against the floor, the countdown still running. She reached for the door, but her fingers touched only cool glass. The doorway wasn't a door anymore. It was a reflection, her own apartment doubled, mirrored backward, everything reversed. In the other version, she could see herself moving closer, mouth open, whispering, words she couldn't hear. The timer hit 0:01. Erin closed her eyes. The air went still. When she opened them, she was standing outside her building in daylight. Traffic hummed, people walked, everything normal. The phone was gone. Her hands were clean, her clothes dry. For one fragile second, she thought maybe it had all been a dream. Then a vibration started deep in her pocket. She reached in slowly. A stranger's phone lay there, SMA model, same cracked corner. She unlocked it with trembling fingers. The screen opened to the voice recorder app. One file, title, the apartment that answered, backdate, today, length, 000. Recording. The red light blinked. The microphone was still on. Erin looked up at her building, at the windows that weren't reflecting her anymore. Somewhere inside, two faint silhouettes stood side by side, listening. She whispered, "Stop recording." But the phone didn't stop. It only wrote one last line across the screen. Good girls listen forever. Then the timer reset to 0:00 and began again.